So without further ado, I'll introduce Tim Edwards from LifeJourney, and he'll be introducing the rest of our speakers this afternoon. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, so hello and thank you, Nathan, and thank you to DLTV for helping us to facilitate this webinar. I'm Tim Edwards, and I'm Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at LifeJourney. I'm based in Sydney. And before I get started today, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which I'm speaking today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, future, and emerging. So just a quick background on LifeJourney, just so you know who we are. We're a global technology company. It's a cloud-based software that allows students to explore different career paths in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We have a very specific focus on cybersecurity in Australia, and we've been working with organizations like the Australian Signals Directorate and Cisco Systems to help illuminate career paths for students in this really exciting field. So that's really what this webinar is about today. We have some really awesome speakers that are going to share their perspectives on their different career paths today, and we also have some resources and pathway information that we're going to share towards the end of the webinar. So let me just get going on my slides here. This slide is produced by Nathan and I, and we used this during our last webinar, but there's a host of different resources to explore different careers and build skills in Australia, and the two ones that we'll be highlighting today are the Australian Signals Directorate CyberEXP, which was created by LifeJourney and ASD, the Australian Signals Directorate, and as well as the Australian Computing Academy's Schools Cyber Career or Cyber Schools Challenges, and the Australian Computing Academy, I think, is now known as the Grok Academy after a merger with a couple of different organizations over the last week. My colleague Carla is going to go into that a little bit towards the end of the presentation today during the discussion on resources. But before we hear from the experts, I'd just like to provide a little background on the cybersecurity field in Australia today. This slide was developed by the CSIRO's Data 61 unit, and it just really shows the breadth and depth of the cybersecurity field in Australia. It shows how big it is. I think it's, in 2016, it was estimated the industry was around 2.2 billion. And that's projected to grow by about 4 million over the 10-year period from 2016 to 2026. Now, with that growth in the size of the industry, obviously comes a huge growth in the number of people that are working in that field. And that the estimated workforce shortage over the next 10 years, I think, is something around 31,000. And that's just needed to safeguard the current economy and not really, to grow the economy is going to need far many more experts than that figure provided. So for the students that are turned in today, or the students that might see this webinar at a future date, I think we want to just highlight a couple things here, and the speakers will hopefully highlight a number of different things, but one of the key takeaways is that cybersecurity jobs pay really well. They're in demand, so you could work almost anywhere, and people will come and find you to work in this field rather than you going out and finding a job or a career. And also, the work that you do in the cybersecurity field really makes a difference. And I know from the speakers that we have today that that's really going to be highlighted. And also, you'll see the industries at the bottom of the screen here, but I think it's important that no matter what field you might want to work in, you will be able to find a job working in cybersecurity, or have cybersecurity will have an impact on the field that you work in or the specialization that you have, no matter if you work in agriculture or mining, or you work in the defense force, or you work for a big bank, or you work for any local government or university. This stuff is going to impact you no matter where you work. So we'll talk a little bit about technical skills today. I think there's often a misconception that jobs in cybersecurity are very technical, and it is quite a technical field. But I think it's important that we highlight a few of the skills that are non-technical. Some people might call these non-cognitive skills. Others might call them soft skills, employability skills, 21st century skills. But these are really important, and really sort of this idea around being a continuous learner. Being sort of coachable and open to new ideas and new ways of thinking as this field constantly changes. Threats, different actors, different surfaces that can be vulnerable to cybersecurity threats change all the time. So your ability to adapt and change as a professional is really key. Being persistent also is another huge attribute in helping to solve these really complex problems. Being perceptive, being inquisitive, and having that ability to communicate is also really important. So this little infographic here is put together by OffCyber. They have a wealth of different resources on cybersecurity jobs on their website. I'd encourage you to check it out. But yeah, I just thought I'd highlight that those skills before we get into it. So just talking about the Australian Signals Director, we're going to talk about the ASD cyber experience towards the end of this program, or the end of this webinar. But for those of you who don't know who ASD is, they're really at the forefront of protecting Australia from cybersecurity threats. And this is through, a lot of this work is through the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, which is the government's peak organization looking at, first of all, preventing attacks from happening in the first place, but also once those attacks do happen, figuring out how to respond, how to figure out what's lost, and how to really prevent those things from happening in the future. ASD is a vital member of the Australian intelligence community, along with other Commonwealth organizations like ASIO, and operates through those three primary mandates there. That's informing, protecting, and then disrupting. We'll really focus today on the protection mandate, and we have a really awesome speaker, Bryce Conan, from ASD, who's going to share his career perspective. But there's a lot of different things that ASD does, in addition to that cyber defense mandate. And I'd also like to say, we talked a little bit about the skills earlier and how having a breadth of those different skills is quite important, but also the specific disciplines that you might work in the cybersecurity field are quite varied. Certainly within ASD and other private sector employers, those skills and subject matter areas are quite different. At ASD, they employ a broad range of people in different disciplines, language experts, psychologists, cryptographers, in addition to ethical hackers, cybersecurity experts, penetration testers, and so forth. So there's a broad need for a diverse range of talent in these areas, and I think that's another key takeaway that I like to highlight today. So just looking at ASD and what they've done recently, I think this was earlier this year, but the Australian political parties, the main Australian political parties, Labor, Greens, and Liberals, were all breached. I think the parliamentary network was breached by a nation-state actor. So again, figuring out how that happened in the first place, and then helping to respond and mitigate those attacks from happening in the future is part of that protection mandate. We talked a little bit about the disruption mandate, which is over to the right, and that's really about protecting Australia from nation states, criminal organizations, terrorists, and helping them, helping to disrupt their operations and make sure that they can't hurt Australians or disrupt our way of life here. This was a really cool story last year that came out about people that are working in cybersecurity at the Signals Directorate, talking about fighting terrorism. So this was, I guess it was sort of, I forget to get the word for it, but maybe Bryce and Karine can help me out. But really trying to understand why people get into this field, and really trying to talk with them and figure out how to convince them to not participate in illegal activity, and really trying to walk this out of it. But this story that was shared here about Claire, who is a covert online operator, was really interesting. So I'd just like to highlight that as kind of a case study. It's an ABC radio interview, and quite interesting on how this online operator had been fighting terrorism from behind a computer screen. And then finally, the cybersecurity, the Department of Home Affairs recently released the 2020 cybersecurity strategy for Australia, which is a policy document outlining sort of a move forward. And along with that, have increased the amount of funding that's going into the space by, I think, $1.35 billion, which is a huge investment. A lot of that's going into education, things like professional development, building pathways for students, building internships, cadetships, and things like that, which we'll hear a little bit about later, but also the creation of 500 new jobs at ASD. So some really exciting things happening in the field. Again, the Australian Signals Directorate through the Australian Cybersecurity Centre is helping to lead this from a government perspective, but there's also a host of different other organizations at the state level and at the local level, private sector organizations like Cisco, the big banks, who are also investing a huge amount of money into this, into really building that cyber resilience for Australia. So we're going to highlight a few of those pathways today. But I think, before I get into our first speaker, just like to highlight the Life Journey program that we've done with ASD. This is the ASD Cyber Experience. We've created this program to help introduce the idea of cybersecurity careers to Australia's students. It features 5 different career paths that you can explore. Also a variety of challenges that can help build your fundamental understanding of the field, and also a simulation that takes you through an incident response sort of scenario. So I encourage you to check that out, share with your students. It can be done as an individual, it can be done as a class as well. So yeah, have a look at that. We've also have a host of other programs on the Life Journey platform that feature other different jobs in technology. But yeah, that's our latest program, the ASD Cyber Experience. So that's it. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Karine Vermaak, I believe. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced that, Karine. But Karine is a cybersecurity specialist with Cisco Systems. She's a really awesome speaker. I think we're really blessed to have her today speaking and sharing her perspective. I've had the pleasure of hearing her speak with students before, and she's done a great job. So, Karine, I'm going to make you the presenter now, and yeah.
Thank you very much, Tim. Let me quickly jump into this. Hi, everybody. My name is Karine Vermaak. As you may derive from my surname, I'm of Dutch descent. So recently, not so recently anymore, but have made myself to Australia through Cisco Systems, and really happy to be here. I've got a long-standing career within cybersecurity, and I'd love to share some of it with you guys today. So I'm gonna get right into it. So I'm gonna get to formally introduce myself through discussing my career with you guys. So not gonna do that as the offset. What I wanted to do is just broaden your minds a little bit. When you look at what does jobs within cybersecurity mean, we all think, and students many times think, oh, but I've got to be extremely technical, and I have to be, constantly sitting in front of my screen. And many times when I train cybersecurity awareness, I say, I'm a certified ethical hacker. You don't see me wearing a hoodie. So I always jokingly say, do I wear hoodies? Yes, I do. Do I work on multiple screens? Certainly I do. Otherwise my eyes get tired. But I definitely don't sit in the basement all the time in a dingy place. But what I do is super exciting. But what I want to talk to you about is that careers within cybersecurity is so tremendously vast. You know, and when I talk you through my journey, you'll find how vast that is and how many skills can be applied very smartly. We definitely have those guys that fight the crime hands-on, not only from a white hat perspective, like penetration testing, testing system, have your ops security operation kind of resources that monitor networks and look at what's happening. And those are what we call the first responders when something actually happens. But behind the scene, there's so many other vastly interesting roles, like understanding whether what we are building from a technology perspective is safe, looking at the risk. Then, as Tim mentioned so eloquently, the government comes up with regulations, mandatory things that organizations have to do that becomes governance. These governance structures needs to be broken down into implementable projects, and companies need people that look at that from a governance perspective, and that forms a big part as to how do we preemptively secure what we do from a technology perspective. And then there are frameworks that you can comply with. For instance, one of the ones that's called out is NIST, is a US framework that was developed, but there's so many frameworks around data privacy that's got a close link with cybersecurity. And this slide really looks at where, I want to say, where the rubber hits the tar kind of roles, but there are so many peripheral roles. If you are a creative, there are roles within cybersecurity marketing, there are roles within the people elements of cybersecurity, really understanding these roles and making sure we get the right resources for these roles. So I really want you to think slightly wider as to what could be a cybersecurity role, and not just imagine the person in a hoodie sitting in a dungeon with many screens. Let's quickly have a look at some of the coolest jobs you get. This is some of the things that get me really interested, because I myself am a digital forensic auditor, and we're going to get to that right now, but that's the number one. So in the nicest English I have, when the pawpaw hits the fan, who's the first boots on the ground to investigate that? And who's the guys that really look at that from a forensic point of view? And why is forensics so important? Because like with any crime scene, you need to ensure that everything stays intact, and you need to have the ability to prove this in a court of law if this is ever taken further. So, and then we have the penetration testers, the guys that really test the systems. Similar to them, application testers. So you wouldn't believe it, but Apple has got the biggest group of these people. Every single app that makes it onto your telephone or into the App Store needs to be tested from a cybersecurity point of view. What information does it gather? Does it get access to your camera? Does it get access to your contacts? Is this secure? Where do they store this data? All of this needs to be verified, which is a really cool job if you think about it. Security operations, those are the guys that's got sitting eyes on screen, monitor the information flow and see where the breaches attack. Then you get the engineering side, and then these continue. You know, you get hunters, you get red team, blue teams within, for instance, the banking environment, guys that constantly look for what's happening on the network and within technology. Then you get the architects that sit back and sort of design how all of this should, you know, stick together to make it as secure as possible. Software, malware, and then some of the technical directors as we go through some of the cool roles within cybersecurity. But let's quickly have a look at how I made it into cybersecurity. So yes, many times when I present get asked, is that you? It is me. It's part of a campaign that I do. Where I come from, I've trained over 48,000 children on my messaging against cyberbullying and digital privacy, and it's something that I have a great passion for. But I've had a really interesting start to my career. I studied law. Yes, I studied law. I qualified law. And whilst doing my articles, I sat across the table from a IT manager, and I needed to draft him a really technical service level agreement. And when we walked out the boardroom, I could see the frustration on this man's face, because why? I just didn't get it. And I was similarly frustrated because why? I just didn't get it, you know? So the reality of that was I was speaking law and he was speaking technology, and the two of us just couldn't get the concepts across as to what needed to be written in this contract. And I, that day, had a light bulb moment, and I said, if I could speak technology, I would have the ability to write the best contracts I could write in my career. And that's exactly what I did. So I did a postgrad in IT, and then I went on to qualify with a master's in information technology law, which really specialized around these governance and frameworks that I've mentioned just now. How do they put together, but also with that understanding of technology, really understand why there is a need for them. I then did quite a few qualifications the technology and network side, because I really needed to understand how these contracts should be written well. And why do we need this legislation? Because if you don't have a thorough understanding of how all of these things plait together, it really makes a subsection of the work rather hard. And many people look at my career and say, Karine, how did you make it here? How are you a lawyer that now is actually a cybersecurity specialist? But it sort of makes me a unicorn if you think about it. And I want to also put it out there. You might have something that really resonates with you well, or that resonates with the student well. And it's really important to spark that interest with them, because they might start with engineering and pivot into cybersecurity, or they even might start with some of the art subjects and then find that they can bring a message of cybersecurity across well with what they have. So it's really, again, as I said previously, important to think rather wide. Then I did, again, the story behind it. I made it onto a steerco where we were building a SOC for a large service provider. And whilst attending one of the meetings, as my portion of the meeting wrapped up, one of the senior engineers sort of dismissed me and said, Karine, you can excuse yourself now. The rest of the topics are rather technical, so you probably wouldn't understand. And I immediately thought, well, I'd want to understand, I understand technology really well. I'm sure cybersecurity is just that next step. So I did a few cybersecurity certs to really get my skill up. And again, having the ability to really understand how this all works together well so that I can implement it in what I do. ISO 20001 Lead Auditor. So what that effectively looks at, it looks at the standards from an ISO perspective as to how do you secure the network? What do you need to do from a physical security point of view, ensuring that people can't access your logical information? How do you secure the firewall? How do you do all of this? It's really quite a prescriptive framework, but what it gives organizations is it gives organization that checkbox. Yes, we can do this. Yes, we can do this. Yes, we document this. Yes, we measure this, to show how mature they are from a cybersecurity perspective. And if you look at how global legislation and governance is put together, it really pivots back to some of the key controls described within ISO 27001. Then I went on to further specialize with some of the security qualifications. And one of my last qualifications that I did is I challenged myself to do a postgraduate degree in digital forensics. And why did I do that? Law being such a big part of my journey into cybersecurity, I really wanted to understand, how do I control and how do I investigate when something happens? And that's been probably one of the most interesting parts of my career. I had a short stint that I worked in a laboratory. So we did a lot of investigations. It's super interesting work. If I want to spark some interest with you, I would get a hard drive from an organization, and they would say to me, not giving me any information, they would say to me, please find out what happened. Now, that's the interesting bit, because then we start uncovering deleted files that's got changed file extensions. So somebody trying to hide files by changing its file extension. We would do, which kind of handshakes that device do. So which networks did it connect to in the past? And this has been probably some of the most interesting work that I've ever done. And during this time, I was also able to command war rooms. And a war room is when the pawpaw hits the fan, everybody comes together in a room, you sign a heap of non-disclosure documents to ensure that you don't speak to the media as to what is happening currently on the network. But then you have to be very methodical. So you have to be pragmatic in how to attack it. You usually start by air gapping the network, and then you start to look, where did the perpetrator come in? What did they do? Because what do we want to find out? We want to find out what information was stolen. What is the net effect of this breach? What does this mean to the organization? And some of the breaches where I was war room commander was governmental breaches in my home state, as well as some large ISPs and banking societies, where the Reserve Bank was breached. We were part of the war room community in that. So we had 2 war rooms in that scenario, where we had to do defend work on the one side, and then we had to do the forensic work on the other side. So while the teams were trying to get the guys off the network and block them, we had the investigate forensic point, where we had to really be methodical in how we investigate this whole environment to ensure once we find them, we can actually prosecute them. Because like with the physical crime scene, guys, if somebody just steps all over the information and they leave blood trails and they leave fingerprints, it destroys the evidence. So it's so critical that you understand that the forensic part in a digital point of view, it's such a tremendous career, and it's super interesting how we do that. And currently, through all of that, I've made my way into a multinational. I work for Cisco. I look at their partner community, and it really is a tremendous job working for a big multinational. Silly hours sometimes, because from time to time I have to work US West Coast hours, which means my engineers are up late at night, which means I'm up late at night. But still, I find it tremendously interesting. We are in the front line. We're developing and building technologies to defend nation states, to deploy. And because Cisco owns the single largest non-governmental threat hunting organization in the world called Talos, you are welcome to look up Talos. You can just Google it. And we've got over 700 researchers that really do this frontline investigation. And as soon as we find perpetrators that do things via a specific URL or a state nation that's got a certain modus operandi, we then have the ability to stop it on all of our technology users. So we can push down that intelligence to all of our technology, and everybody that uses our technology are then, have the benefit of getting that intelligence on a first-hand basis. And that's really been a part of my career. And the ask for today is to have the biggest part of the discussion around this. But Tim, you know me well. I wouldn't be myself if I didn't get a short message across in terms of what I do from a digital privacy point of view. My last qualification that came up, I'm actually also a CCISO, a Certified Chief Information Security Officer. And that actually leads me, before I go into a short message about digital privacy, it leads me to my next slide as to where would I pivot my career? And this is also a slide that really shows what are some of your options. So because I qualified as a CCISO, I really understand these frameworks and governments rather well. And how do you structure the strategy around securing networks? And that's rather important. So, if I'm asked what is my next move from a job perspective, I would probably go into becoming a CISO for an organization or a director of security, looking at a large estate or architecture across a multi-domain, and ensuring that we then look at defending it, but we also comply with governance and we have our risk under control. But if you look at this from a pivot perspective, there's so many other roles that are rather important, when it comes to how do we defend this digital life we live in. And I always say, children of today really have become digital natives. They are native to this digital environment, and therefore it's so important that they also understand some of the key messages that we have to get across to them when they live in this digital world. And if Tim, you can keep me honest, but if I don't have it wrong, I have about another 7 minutes. So I'm gonna jump into some of the messages that we want to have children understand, and I think messages that we sometimes lack in the classroom. There's a lot that we should talk about when it comes to digital privacy and things. And I was once asked when I developed a course, but what is the 5 things that you would want to tell children? And everybody, would think they are rather technical concepts, but they aren't. I think we're having in many cases, we're having the wrong conversations with our students, and our students are so astute and they are so, well versed in this digital world that we really should be shifting the motion for them when it comes to how do we speak to them about digital privacy and cyberbullying. The first thing that I always say is a stranger is a stranger. We are all, and I'm not saying just students, we as adults are under a similar misconception that when I speak to somebody through a device, that it is at arm's length. It absolutely isn't. And I want to stress this because I've seen some scary things. We've taken 48 girls out of a container at a port that were all groomed through Snapchat and Instagram. Those are scary cases. Those are the cases that keep me up at night and probably why I don't want to be in a lab anymore. These are the kind of things that we need to ensure that our children know. Speaking to somebody via a device remains a stranger. The risks are the same, because the behavior is that they groom youngsters and they groom people into a physical contact point. And that is when they really become very dangerous. But not only that, within the digital world, there is fingerprints on everything. If somebody sends me a photo that you've taken, as a digital forensic auditor, I can see where that photo was taken, the actual location. I can see the device that the photo was taken on. And usually that device is linked to a username. So I know who took the photo and where they took it. And children don't understand it this way. Students don't understand it that way. So it's really important that we reiterate that message of a stranger is a stranger. We think because it's through a device. The thing that is something that we don't state enough is the power of the like. As in real life, children feel tremendously pressure to like content online. So do I sometimes. As an adult, I feel I need to like this because it's a friend or it's somebody that is a close acquaintance. It really is important that we stress to everybody that by liking something, you endorse it. There wouldn't be something like hate speech or terrible videos that trend if we break the chain. We don't like it and we don't share it. So this is a really important message for me, and it's rather close to home when you think it, what do we like? And when parents ask me, but how do I navigate this with my child? I always say we have to train our children as digital natives. So it's really important that we sit with youngsters and we say to them, ask them, why do they like it? What is their opinion? Do they agree with a statement? And not only liking it because all the other classmates have liked a similar post. So these are the kind of things that we really want our children to be mindful of. Hate speech on the internet is a never-ending problem. It's on the newspapers everywhere because of the seemingly anonymous nature. Be true. This is something that is so close to my heart because I find that children, and when you look at the mental health reports that we get from youngsters, we find that children are increasingly feeling pressure to be perfect, to seek perfection because of what they see in social media. They see people with perfect lives that gets toys sent to them on YouTube, that gets the use of all of these Ferraris and Lamborghinis just because they are famous. And I always say to children, infamous is a term that was born of recent days. It certainly isn't something that's long-standing. Back in the day, somebody was famous for winning a Nobel Prize. Now somebody is famous for doing silly things online. We should really teach our children to be true to themselves. This young girl is so absolutely beautiful in her picture, but she feels that she has to use a filter and she has to change, the width of her ears, the size of her eyes. She removes fine hairs and lines and pigmentation. She widens her eyes and her lips. She narrows her nose bridge. She even narrows her face. This is something that is behavior driven by young people. We should crowdfund, and I always use that term because I think it is so cool. We should crowdfund authenticity. We should encourage our youngsters and ourselves to really be authentic in what we do online. Then we should think, this is the most important, a video has the ability to go viral within hours. The record at the moment is 8 hours, 3 million views. That is tremendous. So before we post something, we need to ask these three things. And I always teach young people and adults, parents, to mimic this behavior. These three fingers really important. How do I say? The first The first one is your thumb. Is it mine? Did I create the content? Is it my own opinion before I share it? If it's not your content, you should always get permission and ensure that you have the right authority to share this. The next finger is the naughty finger. I always say to the children, mommy goes, no, 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 no. Do I have the right to share it? This is really important. If a friend is in the picture, it's rather courteous to ask, are you okay to share this picture on my social media? And if they're not okay, we have to respect that they're not okay with that. And then the last finger we all know rather well, is it offensive? The children remember this finger the best. So is it mine? Do I have the right to share it? And is it offensive? It's probably the easiest way that I can teach anybody before they share anything. Then control your privacy. Everybody, this is rather critical. There's so much information about it. And I always say, Tim, would you get an SMS if I take a screenshot of a photo on the internet of you? No, you wouldn't. So you don't know how many copies of your information is out there. If I take a screenshot of a WhatsApp conversation, nobody gets alerted. This is really important to stress this with anybody, us as adults as well as children. But our personal information is a web of information. Your identity, and when I do social hacks, Tim, next time we'll organize a demo of a social hack. When I do social hacks, people always say you're a master stalker because, you know, I can get the car that you drive in under 8 minutes just because I've been trained to do social engineering and social hacking, but I do it with little bits of information that I get that's in the public domain. And that's why I usually have the ability to deliver a rather powerful, profile of yours, or steal your whole identity. I've had the ability to steal your whole identity just out of trickles that I have. What gym do you go to? Where do you take the ferry? All of this from Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. I gather these little bits of information and I put together a profile with a profile picture that's readily available. And I have just copied your identity and created a fake Facebook profile of you. That is rather scary. So we need to look at how we set our privacy, and we need to help our children and ourselves to set your privacy rather securely. The last thing that I'm just going to mention is, guys, please ensure that you have a safe password. I've got a quick way of how do I set a safe password. It really is rather quick. I'm going to explain how I do it. A 12-character password is considered uncrackable. How do I do it? Your brain is trained to remember 3 things. Remember that. So I break the 12 up into 3 characters. The first characters and the last characters. The first characters is why do you log in? The last characters is where you bring in your funny character. So what I've done, anybody can tell me that I'm logging into Gmail. The last character is cat in my native language, spelled with an @ So those 2 I'll always remember. In the middle, I've done something that I could easily remember. In this case, it's my dad's initials and his birth date, my mom's initials and her birth date. And when you look at this password, it doesn't seem like anything, but you don't have to write it down. It's complex enough, but when you break it down, why do I log in? My middle portion that can remain the same for all of your applications, and then my last portion is the @ And the only thing that effectively changed is your why you log in. So you have a different password for every system, and it's very, very safe. And I'll share this, Tim, you're welcome to share it and upload it as part of the recording. What are some of the next steps? If you are interested in cybersecurity, again, there's so much going around. There's so many courses. I think Tim and his team is doing a tremendous job in this. But I also want to put out there that as Cisco, we have the Net Academy. There are 2 free online courses that can be delivered and done in a few hours, and you're welcome to participate in those. Tim, and then I'm going to leave some time for questions. I'm going to stop sharing, or you can take control back.
I think it's, I'll take control back, but I think, leaving up that the Cisco Networking Academy is, that's some really wonderful resources that are provided by the Cisco Networking Academy. I've taken some of them myself, and if you would like more of an introduction, more formal introduction to cybersecurity, I would highly recommend those materials. They're really good. Corinne, just let me start off by saying thank you very much for sharing your career path as a digital forensics auditor, I believe, as it's your core training, but also having a wide variety of different experiences and backgrounds. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll just start off with a couple of them. I thought it was really interesting. You know, you've obviously transitioned or sort of blended in law and cybersecurity. I think that's a really cool convergence of different fields that some people might think aren't connected. What sort of advice would you have for students that might another relative subject but might have an interest in cybersecurity? What would be your advice on maybe to someone that's in, you know, year 9 or year 10?
I think it's a tremendous question, Tim, and that's something that sits quite close to my heart, because I always believe that not enough children take the science and technology subjects, so the STEM subjects, and any one of those couple really well with cybersecurity. You can even mention any base degree. When I tell people I'm a lawyer that's a cybersecurity specialist and gone on to qualify in digital forensics, they go, "Oh wow, that's such an unnatural fit." But actually, it isn't, because cybersecurity is highly governed, and to understand that governance, I use my base qualification. And so can you with most things. When we look at engineering could easily couple within a manufacturing or within a mining environment to then build it out as cybersecurity. So what I would say, it's rather important that you look at the science and technology at school. So I want to say that as well. So if you are a year 9 or a year 10 student, you haven't taken up technology as a subject, it never is late. But also, you know, if you didn't end year 12 with it and you go into varsity, it also isn't too late to pivot into one of those universities, or even at a technicon or a college. Any of those have got some of these certs that you could pivot into. So there really isn't something that I would say, oh, that's not a good fit. I think it is to spark that interest. And one of the courses that we have on Net Academy gives you such a nice, vast overview of all of the different disciplines. That's a really good start, and it's a light learn. I think some of the students and even some of the teachers could probably do it in a week or two by spending an hour a day.
Very good. No, that's I would encourage people to look at it. It's wealth of knowledge and resources there. Just one other question for me. We constantly wrestle with this idea of getting more young women and females into STEM, into cybersecurity. It seems like it's not an easy place at times for women to work in. There's a lot of initiatives out there that are trying to combat this, this shortfall of people that are working in the field. What advice would you have for young women that are considering this, or might be feeling sort of left out, or that there's barriers to it and that sort of thing? What would be your advice?
That's, as you know, also a topic quite close to my heart. I am the head of cyber for Cisco APJC, and it really is what you're saying. So twofold. The first thing is that we find that girls sometimes shy away from mathematical subjects. They tend to shy away from the technology subjects. There's sometimes a bad stigma saying those are boys' subjects, and the classrooms are mainly dominated by boys. So what I would say is, wherever you have the opportunity to motivate a young person or a young girl to take the STEM subjects, I would use that opportunity to do that. But then the second thing is something that I have lightly mentioned, is not to be discouraged. If you are a young female that find this now interesting, but you don't have the qualifications. I didn't have the technology qualifications, but I still went into it. So don't let yourself be stopped by any of the reasons. Like, I didn't have the subject. There's bridging courses you can do. There is such a vast amount of online work from Udemy, Coursera. you can really upskill yourself in a few weeks as to really be, knowledgeable in some of the fields, to close that gap between where you are and where you want to be. And then I want to call out and say we've come a far way to say that a role is, not for a female or not for a female. And I say that with great endearment and respect. We have a tremendous movement to sit behind your computer and code or look for threats, but there's so many roles. There's auditing roles and risk roles and governance roles. There's marketing roles and HR roles within these cyber organizations that could fit almost any person, and that goes for any gender, not necessarily only for girls. So I wouldn't want girls to stop looking at cybersecurity just because they think that they're not technical or that they don't have the correct subjects. I would still want them to investigate and see what some of the powerful women in cybersecurity are doing, and also just listen to what their run-up has been. Most of them haven't had the technical background, and we've made ourselves into it. And you do get all of those technology concepts under the knee at some stage.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I think that's a really good advice and encouragement there. I think just understanding that the wealth and sort of the wealth of information and resources and mentoring opportunities that are there, but then also that the breadth of different roles, different subject areas that are available. So yeah, I think that's part of what we're trying to accomplish here is just breaking those sorts of stereotypes and those things. So Corinne, I'd just really like to thank you for coming on today and sharing your outstanding career and the work that you're doing, and also the wonderful tips on passwords and your own digital identity, which is quite critical. So thanks so much for joining us. It's been really wonderful.
Thank you for having me, and welcome. You guys are welcome to reach out to me as well on LinkedIn or Twitter. And have a look at what I do and what I post from time to time. Tim, you do a tremendous job. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much, Corinne. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Alrighty, so our next speaker is Bryce. Bryce, I hope you're still with us here. And apologies, we're running just a tad bit late. So we have two more presenters today, Bryce from ASD and as well as Carla from ASD. So Bryce is going to walk you through his career as a cybersecurity expert. Actually, I'm not really sure.
Cadet.
I'm not sure of Bryce's career title, but anyway, he is working in the cybersecurity field and is going to share his perspectives. So Bryce, we have about 20 minutes and we'll do a Q&A at the end as well. And then we'll have Carla come on and do the pathways and resources. So please feel free to introduce yourself. I don't know you that well, but I've heard great things.
Awesome. I'm just making sure you can hear and see me okay?
Yep, perfect.
Perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Bryce Cronin. I just finished up my first year as a cadet at the ASD, so not quite a cybersecurity expert at this point. So yeah, I was invited here to talk a bit about my background, career journey, and of course, working as a cadet in cybersecurity at the ASD. So just a quick rundown on the cadetship program that I'm a part of. It's run by the Digital Transformation Agency, and cadets like me work for a minimum of 2 days per week, in my case at the ASD, while completing full-time university studies the rest of the time. But in addition to cadets, there's also apprentices who work full-time as an apprentice and spend, I think, around 1 day a week studying a relevant certificate that the apprenticeship program pays for. So yeah, I'll be talking about my experience as a cadet, but I've also worked with a lot of apprentices. So there's a bit of overlap between the programs. So if anyone has any questions later, I'll try my very best to answer. So yeah, I guess I'll start by talking a bit about my background first and how I came to work in cybersecurity. So 4 years ago, I think I was in a similar position that a lot of secondary students are in now. Finished up year 12 and I wasn't quite sure what to do with my life. Throughout high school, I was always interested in engineering, software development, and a whole heap of other nerdy stuff. But for a long time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to uni, sort of take a gap year, or become an apprentice myself. But I ended up getting accepted into a Bachelor of Engineering in Network and Software Engineering at the University of Canberra. So I started up there in 2017. I moved to Canberra from regional New South Wales. And I actually finished up my uni studies a few weeks ago, which was very exciting. But during uni, it's really where I started diving into cybersecurity. It's one of those topics that's just so ingrained into everything with software development and network engineering that it's hard not to get good cybersecurity experience. But I also chose a few sort of electives on top of that, like digital forensics, cryptography, and those type of units. So yeah, problem solving is something that I've always enjoyed. So when I started getting into cybersecurity at uni, it's something that sort of instantly clicked for me, and something that I was really into from the beginning. So yeah, I think uni was 100% the right choice for me. It gives you so many opportunities just to do your own thing. I worked on a lot of personal projects during uni, stuff like, web development, game development. And yeah, I did some fun stuff like co-founded the UC Engineering Society at uni, and spent my final year designing and manufacturing robots, which was really fun and something that I completely didn't expect to do at all. So uni gives you, the space to discover things that you're interested in. So for me, that was cybersecurity. So yeah, if students are thinking about uni, I'd say go for it. It opens up so many opportunities, and you will absolutely meet some amazing people. So back to the cadetship program. I first heard about the cadetship program, I think in my first year of uni. I thought I'd apply for the 2018 intake. It went horribly for me. My interview was horrible. I didn't get progressed. But yeah, there's a few rounds before you start work. The first is a written response to a number of questions. Then there's an interview stage after that. And then a stage after that called speed dating, which is where you'll speak with a heap of government agencies, including the ASD. You'll rank them, they'll rank you. And if there's a match, you'll be offered a job. So that's really fun. So I applied again the next year, and I got through all the rounds. So I got into the 2020 intake. So I've been working at the ASD all year, and just being exposed to a heap of different roles. So yeah, as I said, I've been working 2 days a week at the ASD while completing my university studies on top of that. And so I've been moving around between teams for the past year, doing rotations, but it's different for every cadet. Some cadets may end up doing less regular rotations, and some might end up sticking to their original team they get placed in. It all depends on the team and what the cadets want to do. So yeah, it's all about getting a feel for the different areas and roles. So there's so many different roles within cyber that it's sometimes a bit overwhelming. So yeah, during my rotations, I've been involved with some really, really technical roles and some less technical roles. So if there's one thing I've learned, it's that, sort of like what Tim said at the start, there's every role imaginable within the AST, not just technical roles, but non-technical roles, and HR and all the other stuff. So yeah, I've worked with a whole heap of amazing and smart people who've guided me within my career journey over the past year. Doing the cadetship program with the ASD, you'll get, supervisors, you'll get a career officer, you'll get so many people who you can talk with, who will support you on your journey. So sort of the work I've been involved with has been sysadmin, security, report writing, Windows policy. Those are the main ones, but more recently, some web development. And the ASD is really good in that if there's something you want to do, you just have to let your supervisor know, and the role probably exists and you can go try it. So my cadetship is just wrapping up. So I'll be starting full-time work with the ASD fairly soon. And I've been involved with so many teams that I sort of have the choice which team I want to go with full-time, which is really exciting. And for someone like me who's been really indecisive, it's been really good getting exposed to everything so I can make a really informed choice. Another thing, like Tim said earlier, it really does feel like I'm doing important work and making an impact. Having a job like that, especially so early on in my career, is an amazing feeling. I don't think many jobs will feel like you're making as much of an impact as being a cadet within the ASD. the work-life balance, or I should say the study-work balance, has been really good. Because the ASD understand that university's really, really intense at some points. So there's a very generous study allowance. So every unit you complete, you get $800, which as a broke uni student has been really good. But then extra time off during exams, assignments, yeah, they're very generous with, and I couldn't feel more supported. So yeah, my journey into cybersecurity is only really just beginning. And overall, I'm really happy with my experiences in the cadetship program. I've got the opportunity to meet so many great people and work within so many different roles that it's been a great way to enter the industry, and being supported the entire way through, of course. I think I wrapped that up really quick. I think that's it for my career journey. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. Or if Tim, if there's anything else you'd like me to touch on, yeah, please let me know.
Yeah, sure. And everyone, please, I have a few questions for Bryce, but if you do have questions, just put them through the chat box and we can read them out here. But Bryce, first of all, congratulations on completing your university degree.
Thank you.
And also congratulations on completing the cadetship and making the transfer into a full-time role. I mean, that's really awesome, especially in this day and age where unemployment is sort of going down, and you know, there's the economy is a bit in tatters. It must feel good to have your university degree completed and starting a new role. So yeah, just really I'm really excited for you. First of all, yeah, I did have a couple of questions. You mentioned that you're from regional New South Wales, and I think that's you know, a large part of Australia is coming from those regional remote areas. When you were growing up, did you ever sort of consider this, or did you ever know about ASD or any of these organizations that, you know, you interviewed with as part of the cadetship? Was it anything like that on your radar, or?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, so I grew up in Dubbo, and yeah, all these organizations I had absolutely no idea about until I moved to Canberra. Canberra's been a really good place, being exposed to so many different government agencies. But yeah, prior to moving here for uni, it's really something I had no idea about. But yeah, I guess I did do a lot of software development, which isn't as much of a thing, especially engineering in regional New South Wales. It's really not as much of a thing as it is I found in capital cities like Canberra, Sydney, Melbourne. But yeah, I'd definitely say for people from regional New South Wales, yeah, have a look at what's available, especially the cadetship program. It caters very strongly for people who aren't from major cities, and they'll support you the entire way through in getting relocated if you're interested in starting a new position in a different city.
That's great. Yeah, and so yeah, when talking about the cadetship program, I think there must be a number of different people in your cohort. Has there been any sort of like camaraderie, or like you know, people that you've hang out with, or that people that you've been able to network with, either through the cadetship program or also through you know, the University of Canberra? Because you mentioned you've started the engineering society. What are other people saying that are sort of your age and coming through all this this transformation at the same time that you are?
Yeah, I'll answer the first part of that. So for the first 8 weeks of the cadetship program, all the cadets within the ASD are placed in the one office, basically the one room, where you get to know everyone over the 2 months. And then after that, you're all sort of dispersed amongst the agency. But yeah, I still keep up with all the cadets I first started with. Yeah, lots of camaraderie. Yeah, I still regularly bump into other cadets, other apprentices. And just like the mentors, they're very supportive, and they're great people to know. I found the ASD only really hires the best people, so they've been really good hanging out with. And yeah, they all love their roles and really enjoy the people they work with. And yeah, with the engineering society and uni friends, the cadetship program or the apprenticeship program is always something I try to promote to people. It's a great way to just get exposed to so many roles. And I absolutely believe the people at ASD, probably, yeah, the nicest people I've met. It's really good to get into the industry. And I don't think, yeah, any other company will be as supportive as the ASD. So I highly recommend it to, yeah, anyone I come across.
Nice. Very good. Just maybe a bit of a tougher question. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you mentioned, you know, the first time that you, I think, applied for the cadetship program, you didn't get in, and I'd imagine, I remember going through the same sort of thing, and you get flustered in the interview, or you get flustered as part of this thing, and it can kind of it can be a lot. But how did you overcome that challenge and sort of, you know?
You cut off during the second part of that question. If you just want to repeat that, sorry.
Oh yeah, just curious, sort of what your strategy was for, you know, getting through that and overcoming that initial sort of pushback, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, the first time where I was rejected, I really just wasn't prepared. So you get plenty of time. You get the questions in advance, I should say, and then after that, you have to speak in front of a panel of 4 people. This was during my first year of uni, where I guess I was a lot more shy and a lot less prepared. So it was quite overwhelming for me. But coming back the next year, yeah, I'd done a lot more public speaking by that point. I'd prepared my answers in advance for some common questions. And while, yeah, getting rejected the first time was, you know, a bit sad, coming back the second time and just absolutely probably just acing it was very exciting, and I think I'm better off because of it. So yeah, I'd say, yeah, prepare some for some common interview questions, and the panel is really nice. They're very friendly and very easy to talk in front of. It's not very corporate. It's all very relaxed, and yeah. That's
good. No, that's really helpful. Thanks for opening up on that. I think it can be, while it is a really exciting and interesting and well-paying and impactful job, it can be hard to break through into this sort of thing. I've heard that from a lot of people that have entered. That initial breakthrough can be sort of difficult. So yeah, it's helpful to hear those experiences. So any sort of ideas on where you want to head in the future? You know, you've got into ASD, you've got a great background. What are your sort of passions in the field, and where do you see yourself, you know, in the future?
Yeah, so originally I thought I'd go down the technical route, so some hardcore software development. But the more I'm exposed to these new roles, I'm more leaning towards business analyst or project management roles now that I've been exposed to those things more. But I think, yeah, a mix of sort of those 3 different things is really what I'm sort of aiming for. But yeah, I'm not quite sure, but I definitely want to do a lot more project management in the future.
Okay. Very good. Well, I think that's it for my question. So I think we'll wrap it up. But just wanted to say thank you so much for being available today and sharing that. And yeah, just heartfelt congratulations on uni and getting a new job. Huge step in your life. So congratulations and all the best with your future work.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Bryce. Okay, so just to wrap things up, we have a really exciting presentation on the different types of resources that are available for students and schools to, build understanding and capability in this. We've had some really awesome experiences that have been shared from Bryce and Kareen, but now we're just going to talk a little bit about some of those pathways, and also the resources that are out there. We mentioned the Cisco Networking Academy and the Life Journey ASD Cyber Experience, also the Australian Computing Academy, and or Grok Academy now. But now, so Carla Roca-Call is and sorry if I've messed up that name, but she's at the entry-level programs component of ASD. So works with a variety of different organizations to help support things that ASD is helping to fund, and really helping to build that future pipeline and that awareness a future pipeline of cybersecurity professionals, but also build awareness more broadly about cybersecurity across Australia. So, Carla, that's my introduction, and I'll leave it to you.
Excellent. Can you hear me fine? Can you see my screen?
Yes, both of those.
Excellent. So hello everyone. My name is Carla Rocha-Call. So I work as part of the entry-level programs team, more specifically pathway programs. So we look after a whole range of different programs, which I will discuss over the course of this presentation. Let me just get on to the next slide. There we go. But before I get into the ASD opportunities and our programs, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the resources that are available. So we partner with the Australian Computing Academy, and basically it's the University of Sydney that leads the Australian Computing Academy. With GROC, there's some changes coming up, but not necessarily relevant anyway. But I guess what I wanted to explain about what the Australian Computing Academy do is that their main focus is to help teachers implement the Australian curriculum, so digital technologies, and they've basically created challenges and activities that align directly with the curriculum, and they have full outlines with teacher resources to assist with the delivery. We, in terms of the resources, the digital technologies challenges have been developed by teams of Australian teachers, curriculum experts, and computer scientists. And the challenges are great. They'll enable you to learn skills in a fun and engaging environment. So I highly suggest that that you go and explore the links throughout the presentation. There'll be quite a few links that we've got. So I highly encourage you to go and have a look and check it out. So the cybersecurity challenges, they're designed to explore topics such as personal information security and data sharing. So similar to the topics that Korean was talking about, and as well as technical topics such as cryptology and network security. These activities are quite engaging and they involve investigation, deduction and programming, and they'll enable you to develop your knowledge and skills as you work through the challenges. We also have what's available as the National Computer Science School, the challenges. So they run a variety of competitions throughout the year, and the first one being the NCSS challenge. So this is unlike any other programming competition for school-age users. They're designed to teach you how to program as you go along, rather than expecting you to know how to do it beforehand. So it's really good if you're not too sure about your skills. It's a great way to to give it a go and learn as you go. But the students that already have a bit of experience and they're a bit more advanced, they shouldn't be discouraged, because there's also you're also catered for. So the problems range from relatively simple to mind-bendingly hard. So there's, I guess, a little challenge for everyone. And the second program that the NCSS run is the NCSS Summer School. So this is a 10-day residential summer school for students going into year 11 and 12. And it basically focuses on computer science and website development over the 10-day period. So have a look again at the link if you're interested, and find out a little bit more information. So now I've kind of told you a little bit about all these resources that there are out there. And once you've gained these skills, it's, I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about what opportunities exist within ASD. So I'll start with the work experience, so ASD work experience program. So this is a program that is aimed at year 11 and 12 students Australia-wide. So the program is actually ran from the Australian Cybersecurity Centre in Canberra, but we do get students coming from Australia-wide. So usually happens 4 times a year over the school holiday period, and it's a week-long program, and it's based on a cybersecurity scenario. So it is really, really great. It's a great opportunity for those students that are considering a STEM-related field of study. Now, the sessions for next year, so this year with COVID, we had to postpone our sessions. However, we do have a 2021, so there will be announced, but there's a link there, so go and have a look at our page, and there's a bit more information on there, but it's a great initiative. So another program is the ASC Apprenticeship Program. So Bryce went into it a little bit because it is quite, they do work quite close together, the apprentices and the cadets. But yeah, basically it's an Australian government digital apprenticeship program. It's basically aimed at students that are completing the Year 12 certificate. And it's also for people with a passion for ICT, looking for a new career move. So yeah, so we get those Year 12 students finishing their Year 12 certificate, but there's also, I guess, some adults that wanting a career change. So for the 2022 program, the applications will open in May next year. So that's, again, something to look out for on our website. ASD also sponsors students under the Defence Civilian Undergraduate Sponsorship. So these are for Year 12 students moving into university studies. The type of studies that we do sponsor are the computer science and cybersecurity studies, and the studies done under the University of New South Wales, based in Canberra at ADFA. So again, there's in terms of more information about how to apply and what's involved, head to our website. We don't have a lot of time for us to go into a lot of detail, but this is a great initiative. Now, I am conscious that you're all secondary students, but I also just wanted to very briefly run through some of our tertiary opportunities. So once you are at uni, I just want to, I guess, make you aware of what opportunities exist at ASD once you are in that tertiary phase. So the ASD Cadetship Program, so like Bryce, so these are for university students who have completed at least 1 year of studies, and it's a great opportunity, as Bryce described. I think I don't have much more to say. He did a really good job of explaining what a great opportunity it is. But yeah, it's just a great opportunity to work and study at the same time and get exposed to different roles. And applications next year will open in May. So again, look out on our website. Not obviously just yet, but in future, you can where to go to find this info. And then we have the Asc Internship Program. So this is a program that is aimed at students that have completed 2 years of full-time study by the start of the internship. So it's a summer internship program. So usually we get university students to apply when they're in the second year of uni, and then at the end of that year, over the summer period, they'll come to Canberra at ASD, and they'll complete their internship. So it's a whole variety of streams. So it's not just for ICT and cyber information security, engineering, maths, other STEM fields, but also we have a new stream, so business stream. So it's quite interesting because we do have interns in more corporate type of roles, which just goes to show how broad cybersecurity can be. Now, the next application round is April next year. Again, not quite relevant just yet, but it's usually around April, May every year. So it's a good one to keep in mind for future. And then last but not least is the graduate program. So this is a great program, highly successful at ASC. We have intakes of pretty huge numbers every year. So it just offers a unique and challenging and rewarding work that contributes to maintaining Australia's national security. You get to develop and expand your skills, and you'll get, similar to what Bryce was talking about, so you get a mentor, you'll get opportunities to be exposed to different type of roles, giving you a chance to to try out different areas and see what you like best. And so that usually opens in that first quarter of the year as well. So that's one to keep in mind. Now, are there any questions?
Hey, Carla, thanks so much for that presentation. Yeah, really good. Wow, like your background. I'm not sure where that came from, but
so that go for something abstract.
It's quite cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing all that information. Yes, certainly some really cool things. I know we've all been impacted by COVID this year, but yes, hopefully some of those great programs that you're supporting will be available in 2021 at some point. Yes. Particularly the work experience program. I know that's a big part of what you guys do, and I've had the chance to see it myself a few times and know how valuable it is in really helping that next generation explore what it's like. I would encourage those of you that are teachers maybe joining or have a student to continue checking the webpage and put in an application for the work experience program, even if it's not available in the immediate future. Just let them know that you're interested. Get on the radar, start practicing that application process. Quite good. So, yeah, I'd encourage that.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really, really important that, you just have a look at what opportunities exist and just have a look at what's required in terms of applications. Mm-hmm. Usually they're not too complex, but there is always a little bit of work involved. So it's nice to I guess get ahead of the game in that. And it's been really, really good. So the work experience program, we always get amazing feedback. And a lot of our students that have completed the work experience have, gone on to apply for the Defence Civilian undergraduate sponsorship and been successful in that. They've also done an internship program and kind of completed that pathway into ASC. So it does give you a great, I guess, opportunity to see what you could do here.
Good. Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's always nice to see the progression of people that have, maybe they did the NCSS challenge in high school or did a Grok learning program, and then eventually made their way into work experience and the cadetship, and now, maybe they're solving these really complex problems that are nearly impossible. So yeah, it's quite good. And I think Bryce, I'm still thinking about the golf tournament over the weekend, but yeah, so he mentioned that really every role imaginable is available at ASD and within the cybersecurity field more broadly. Yeah, I think that's really key point here today is just understanding that breadth of opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about, I know that up until recently there was the internship program, for example. It was primarily based around technical roles over the last, I would say maybe before this year started, but now it's sort of opened up to another stream of people. Can you talk about the group of people that might be, or the skills or sort of the subject matters that people are coming from in those areas that are non-technical? Yeah,
100%. So I'm actually really excited about these because I come from a non-technical background. And when we were talking about the internship, and over the last, I think it's been quite a few years that we've had the internship program, it's always been an ICT type of technical internship. So this year, actually I should say last year, one of the interns that that came on board had a bit of a more of a corporate type of background, and they were placed in a corporate type of role, and they were able to utilise their both their ICT skills but also the corporate type of skills, and they did really successfully. So we used that intern, I guess I say, our case study to say, hey, let's open it up. So yes, this year it's pretty much a 50-50 split. So 50% of our interns are tech, and the other 50% are corporate. So they have a whole range of backgrounds in terms of what they're studying. So a lot of marketing, comms, journalism, HR. So yeah, that type of role. So yeah, and it's just during the interview process and all that, they were really quite excited by this opportunity, because most of them were like, well, I know a little bit about cybersecurity, but I also am an expert, or studying to become an expert in, say, comms. So how can we marry the two together? So similar to what Karian was talking about, it's just there are so many different roles that you can do within cybersecurity. It's not just the hooded guy in a dingy basement. So
yeah, no, that's quite good. Someone asked me a question recently about, because I was trying to talk about how there's non-technical roles in cybersecurity, and they asked me the question, well, if there's non-technical roles in cybersecurity, then what are they called? What are those? How do I search for those type of roles, or what are they? Would they be similar to sort of support roles that would be in a private sector organization, or would it be similar roles that would be found within government, or do they have some sort of special connotation or special naming convention because they're in this cybersecurity space?
No, not really. I think the key would be to know what the organisation does. So ASD, obviously, is cybersecurity. So a lot of what we do is cybersecurity. So if you know what the organisation does, then you can look for a role, even if it's something like marketing. But it's going to be related to cybersecurity. Okay. Yeah. So the naming of the roles are pretty standard. From what I've seen.
Oh, very good. Well, that's really it for my questions. If anyone else has a question, feel free to put it in here. I've included a number of different links for different resources here, and we'll send out the slides and the links below. But yeah, there's the Australian Computing Academy, the program that we developed, the CyberEXP, NCSS. Then also having a look at the careers page for ASD, some really cool resources there. Yeah, that's really it for me. Can you think of anything else, Carla, that we've missed?
No, I don't think so. I think, for me, I know some of the dates I went through in the presentation, and it can be a bit, I guess the biggest thing for us is, go to that link that you've put on there for ASD and student opportunities, and there's a whole range of different things and a whole lot of links to different things. So, and if you have any questions, there's an email contact there as well, so you can always send us an email.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Carla. I really appreciate your time, and yeah, have a good rest of your day. That was really helpful, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.